Hey everyone, welcome to The Path of Me. I'm your host, Wendy Hutchinson, and this is a show about inspiring to live your best life by inviting really cool guests who have overcome adversity, stepped into their lane, and embraced their authentic power. So today's guest is the beautiful Kalena James. Welcome, my friend. Thank you for
Thank
being
you.
with us today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Is a dynamic and impassioned leader, and she's a very sought after coach. She's an expert in communication, business transitions, but she's also the CEO of LyfQuest, which is a new app, and I signed up for it, and I can't wait to give it a whirl. So welcome, Kalena. Thanks for being.
Ah, Thank you so much for having me. This is such a treat. We've had some amazing, connections so far, and I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah.
Hello, listeners.
Thank you for being here.
Yes.
My first question is, you don't really get to this place in your life of committed service and alignment with your lane, so to
Mhm.
speak, without going through some things,
Mm.
going through some challenges. I think a big part of us being able to be in service is that we have gone through our own personal journey so we can, lean back and extend a hand to bring people through
Mhm.
with a little more ease and grace. So
Mm.
tell me a little bit about your journey and how you got here.
Ah, Thank you for asking. I, I ask your listeners, and I'm asking you in this moment, how many times have you ever been asked this question, like, what is your purpose? And so for me, I have asked that question over and over and over again. And I consider myself to be in this journey called life for quite some time. And so I learned a long time ago, Wendy, that, living in other people's perspective of me by asking that question, it gave them the subtle control or the power over me. And, when you're young and you're, growing up and you're inspired and you live in this world before the internet, before ratchet TV is what I call it, reality TV, you
Mm-hmm,
live in your little bubble.
mm-hmm,
And so, outside in your world, there are things that you draw from. And so, again, looking for what my purpose was, I would ask that question a lot. And I realized that over the years, I was giving away my power. I was looking for other people to speak into my life to give me some sort of direction on who I am and whose I am. And, having the success that I've had, most people think that I grew up with this silver spoon in my mouth. They truly believe that I had this wonderful environment, right? That just gave me access to so many cool things. But um, at the end of the day, that was not the case for me. I grew up in a house where there was verbal, physical abuse, mental abuse, and I was feeling so insecure, feeling rejected, and believing that I was nothing and believing that I was never really good enough for anything. And
mm-hmm.
I was hearing words like, you ain't gonna be nothing, you ain't good enough, you ain't gonna amount to nothing. Who do you think you are? You Miss Rich B. Bleep, and it was really devastating. And a lot of people don't even realize, how old I was. And when I asked them, do you know how old I was? And they're like, well, how old were you? And I'm like, yeah, I was 6 years old.
Wow,
And
that's an
yeah,
incredible amount
yeah,
of negative
hmm
programming being reinforced daily
hmm
into a child's psyche. So
yeah,
I
yeah,
marvel that you have been able to become and evolve into the best version of you,
yeah,
that
yeah,
foundation. Tell me a little bit about that journey. How did
yes,
you unfold? How did you get from there to here? That's just such a
yeah.
high mountain to climb.
Yeah, yeah. I remember one pivotal, I think, marker in my life, and that was again at that age when I was hearing, "You'll never be nothing. Who do you think you are? You Miss Rich, bitch." And I remember something inside of me pushing back, saying, "I am somebody. I am somebody." And
Mm,
I would remember myself saying that, "I am somebody. I am somebody." At a 6 year, being 6 years old.
that's powerful.
Yes, yes, and I believe that that was probably something that was a pretty cool marker for an amazing journey that happened and unfolded after that. And so, in trying to find my life purpose, right, as a young adult and as a teenager, I often excelled professionally. I often sought out opportunities to serve in ministry in my church. I even prayed about it. I even got involved with, at-risk youth that were that I could relate to, right? In a community, in an organization that I felt like, I could give back because somehow I got out. And
Yes.
yeah, I got out. And so feeling good on one end, Wendy, but also feeling unfulfilled on the other end was taxing. It was taking from each other. And so it wasn't until the work that I did with youth at the detention center did I realize that I needed to, have more, be more, because my story of wanting to help them, to tell them about my past, where I've come from, my story just wasn't enough. It just wasn't enough to be able to help young adults be able to shift. And so that's when I made the decision to opt into coach training certification. And so in that interim, I'm telling the world and my colleagues and my friends, I just believe that, God can use me. I truly believe that he can use more of me. However, I believe that there's more falling through my hands than what is actually being birthed out of my hands. And
Mm.
I'm wondering if the vessel itself needs to sharpen itself. And what can I do to inspire people from the inside out to live connected to change? And so there was a young friend of mine who at the time said, "Had you ever considered coaching?" And I was like, "What the heck is that?" Like I had never heard of that. Like,
Mhm.
this is back,
Yeah.
20 something years ago. What is that?
Right.
And let me tell you something. I had made the decision to become an IPEC graduate, the International Professional Excellence in Coaching Institute. It is a phenomenal coach training certification program. And I decided to opt in and go through what we call transformational leadership, energetic leadership transformational journey for myself. But let me tell you something, Wendy, the crap hit the fan. When I tell you I had to come face to face, with my own trauma, with my own pain,
It all
because
comes up, doesn't
girl,
it?
it all comes up because
It all
how
comes
can we be the message and not just a messenger in
Yeah.
the experience of life transformation? And I thought I was going to be a blessing to other people to learn this skill set about human anatomy and to work with the
This is a
cognitive
humbling
ability.
journey, isn't it? It's so
Girl,
humbling for us
it is.
in the process of seeking our service to
Yes,
others. We
yes,
are confronted with ourselves and our,
correct.
and I will tell you also from firsthand experience, it was incredibly humbling for me to confront the unconscious programs like you were talking about. We get
Yeah,
into these programs because of our conditioning and
yeah,
history and our parents and our families and
yeah,
religion, whatever it is that we're surrounded by, right? And
yeah.
so, yeah, I can
Girl,
relate
to
to
have
that
to
statement.
I like literally when I came face to face with that pain. And that was one of those moments that I try to put the words to it, but the best way that I can describe it is it's like a replay of your entire life unfolding before your eyes up until this moment. And instead of looking at um, all of the things that appear to be bad or good or indifferent or great. I had a choice to make. I had a choice to decide in that replay of my life to turn pain into power.
Mhm.
And I realized that everything and who I was and what I was searching for was right in front of me the whole time.
Yeah.
And embracing her, embracing the girl, the woman that I was hunting for, looking for, was right in front of my face the entire time.
Mm.
Who I was right in front of my face. And when I tell you what came to forward for me was everything that my hand had touched, every title that my resume had, every experience in the experience that I was unfolding, I was living connected to what I consider the title of a life coach. And life coaching is really the partnership that comes alongside of people to help them put those pieces together. And in that partnership of really wanting to see people live connected to their power, their purpose, and their plan. And I just had titles, but I was looking for a title to find purpose. But what I found was the impact of the work that I do that is really the calling that I have or the gift that I have. And so I've summed it up in a metaphor that I believe really speaks to my impact is that I am the ray that causes a deep breath that awakens the soul. And people are like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, I don't perceive to be God, but I am truly an instrument in this universe that wants to extend my ability to be a vessel for people's access to progress and growth. And so if I, in my opportunity of working and partnering with people, create an aha moment, what I like to call is the ray, right? Sitting and laying under the sun can exhale the weight, or it can inhale the empowerment of it, the rejuvenation of it. I am the ray that causes a deep breath, whether it is an exhale or an inhale,
Love
that awakens that
that.
soul.
So
Yes.
I think that also our power of turning pain into purpose is our ability to reflect back the individual sitting in front of us, their power to them.
Yes.
Because they're often in such a deep place of suffering or in a transition where they have a block or something's holding them back. We have the
Yes.
ability to reflect to them the light within them.
Absolutely. Because in that replay for me, um, it was the beauty in the ashes. It was the journey that needed to be experienced in the moment for it to all make sense. And so I have this foundational belief that, that there are no problems or challenges, there are only opportunities. And that truly brings forth this heartbeat that says that in the moment of your uncomfortability, blindside, setback, in time, giving the right measure of healing, we can truly draw from it that gives us a greater palette for what this life experience offers us. And, life is a gift. And as it unfolds, the indifferences or the joys or the heights or the lows of it, we get to because there's so many people that have never been in this experience called life more than it has been. And so I believe, owe it to them to live this thing called life in all of its glory because we get to experience it. And so, who am I to say the little blind side isn't offering you the very thing that you so desire if given some time
It's
to
guiding
process
them,
through?
it's guiding them to the life that they are meant to have and hold and live.
Yeah,
But
I'm getting everything I've always wanted.
I think our society has a way of just really glorifying the shiny, the
Yes.
happy, the
Hmm.
good. But this life is full spectrum.
Yes.
What I've learned from my experiences, all of it, I needed all of it. I needed to experience all of it. I needed to embrace and embody the pain. I need to do my inner work. I had to confront myself, the good, the
Hmm.
bad, the ugly, and the beauty.
Yes. Yes.
And I would not change one thing at all. And I think people maybe need to reframe how they relate to the challenges, the suffering, the adversity, because that is what builds us. That is what gives us perspective, resilience,
Yes.
healing. Like you have to go through. You cannot avoid pain and get where you need to be.
Come on, Wendy.
Living
Yes.
empowered and purposeful life. You have
Yeah.
got to unpack it. You've got to melt all that armor around your heart that you've built up
Hmm.
to prevent yourself from being hurt further and have the courage to go into vulnerability. And that's the beauty of coaching. That's the beauty of the work is you get to hold sacred space for people. And what a gift because you've experienced it yourself. That makes you
Hmm.
so much more impactful. You've walked the path before. You
Hmm.
know the way forward.
Yes. And I, how to wait in it. You know how to wait and be patient in it, and you know when it's important to seek for additional resources and support when you've sat so long.
Yeah.
And I always have this, mantra or this saying that, it's okay to, take a step back. It's okay to not be okay. But is it in control of you, or are you in control of it? And if it is in control of you and you're unable to shift, to take action, right? To win, or to reconcile, or to creatively, move forward in a more productive and responsible and anabolic way, then look for those tools and resources around you, but be good in the moment of the resource around you to learn a skill or a tool that can be used for years to come. And that is, I believe, another kind of mission, if not a transformational opportunity with my clients or anyone that I've had an opportunity to partner with, is I want you to live without me. I want you to live without having to,
Yes.
having to, be needed or needing resources that can truly be yours to have if we truly understand thyself and are able to do the deep work. And so part of the partnership with any client is not just getting them through this journey that they're experiencing, but it's also learning of themselves, but then also learning what works best for them and how they want to manage strong emotions, or manage, the relationships, or manage a new awareness on how to safeguard it and how to keep strengthening it, and how to take what they've learned in that one aspect and apply it in other areas of their life that are not experiencing
The tools
abundance.
are so critical. And I
Yeah.
think many people feel like they have to do it alone.
Mhm.
Like they are alone, they have to do it alone. They're not worthy of spending money on themselves to seek resources or that retreat or the um, coach or whatever.
Yeah.
But
That's
if
unfortunate.
you can see your worthiness enough to engage in some of these tools and services and opportunities in front of you, if you can just move past your ego that's saying, I got this, when you're at an impasse, you may have it, but it's going to take you a lot longer
Longer.
to get there than if you can just open your heart and accept help.
Yes.
Just-
Yes, 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 and amen.
and
Yes,
not
yes,
resist.
yes,
I go through it too myself,
yes.
in something deep, and someone's trying to help me, I'm like, I don't want to talk to anyone.
I know.
I
Not even
I need
myself.
to learn to walk my own talk.
So I only want to talk to myself.
Yeah.
And that really is, something you said is, tools. When we say tools, and I know when I say tools, somebody's looking for that tangible piece of paper, or, three-step process. And it's also strength finding conversations that you utilize for yourself to segregate the noise
Yeah.
and then rightly divide it to know what's true, and then to analyze, if not, how can I say it? Wendy, it is when you can dance with it and it teaches you something, but it's also a burden in some way, but it's showing you really cool things about yourself and about life. And then you're able to call it something, identify it as
I think a
something.
big part of it is people giving themselves the presence and grace
Hmm.
of space and silence,
Yeah.
because there's a lot of distraction out there.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of programming that tells you if you continue to seek outward, you're going to find it.
Hmm.
You're going to find it. You're going to
Hmm.
find yourself out there. But I know, like I know, it's only in here. It's only
Yes.
in your heart space. It's only in vulnerability. It's only in truth,
Yeah.
discernment, even
Yeah.
detachment from the story,
Yes.
that you're going to elevate. You're going to go through incredible transformation. I also feel like people can't see beyond the gradient of experience that they're in currently. So it's
Mm.
hard to imagine a life of empowerment.
Mm-hmm.
or abundance or
Mm-hmm.
worthiness or whatever that looks like, because they haven't touched it. It's really hard to reach for something that you don't really have a concept of
Yeah.
it being available to you. You don't have a concept of what it is embodied.
Yeah.
You can read texts, you can read books that motivate you, but
Yeah.
until you can energetically unpack it and really be working consciously on your healing and your processing and
Mm-hmm.
letting go a
Mm-hmm.
lot of your past that's
Yeah.
holding you back,
Yeah.
you can't really step into it. You can mentally, go for it, but you have to also match it energetically.
Right. Right. And isn't it so interesting that, in one area of somebody's life, that faith, that confidence, that optimism to rewrite some narratives is is championed with everything in them. And then there's those other areas that just seem to be so deep seated that they experience a level of success and then it plateaus, like as if there is this unconscious belief wall, um, a new skill set, new way of living being that is asking and inviting them. And some people say fear of failure or imposter syndrome or fear of success, or it's just interesting when you said that because I've recognized that in some beautiful people who have taken their abilities to rewrite narratives, but then they hit a wall,
Well,
right? They
there's
hit
this internal worthiness story, I feel like.
mm,
Like I feel like that block is really around worthiness. Like they can see it, right? They can see the magic that's waiting. But if you have never embodied yourself in that space, it can be terrifying.
yeah, yeah. And what would you lose?
Well,
What would
sometimes
you
you
have
have
to give
to lose
up?
a lot
Mm-hmm.
to step into that next level.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you have to lose a marriage, or you have to lose a toxic parent, or you have to
Yeah,
lose a career choice that's not aligned, because
yeah,
your purpose is far greater. But
yeah,
then people want to stay in that safety, and people want to really hold on to what is comfortable, even
yeah.
in the discomfort of it.
I so agree because going back to the moment when that crap hit the fan for me, my life played forward. And what became of that was, the person that I was looking for was right in front of me the whole entire time. And
Mhm,
beautiful people that I had given my power to in
mhm.
this, in that moment in my life, they were beautiful people. And people I admired, people I probably admired way too much, you know what I'm saying? I trusted everything that they said, but then I started to say privately, quietly, "You gotta go. You have to go. You have to go, and you have to go, and you
Mhm.
have to go. I love you to death, but I can no longer give you my power because it's too much of a crutch, it's too much of a hindrance, it's too dependent, it's too needy."
The fact that you
And
had this awareness is
mhm,
so powerful. But I think there are these pivotal moments in life where our soul is calling us forward.
right?
And not everyone is journeying with us.
Yeah.
They walk with us through a specific phase and time in our lives. They give us lessons. They give us friendship, maybe.
Mhm.
And then that's where it ends. Like not
Mhm.
everyone is here to journey with us the entire way. That it's like running a part of a marathon. Like maybe they're going to be with us for like 2 miles of the marathon, or even 10 miles of the marathon. And what I feel is we get to these nexus points where we want to keep going, and we want to keep growing and expanding into our fullest potential and purpose and power.
Mhm.
And energetically, it's just not a vibrational match. I always refer to energy. It's kind of like that AM, FM satellite radio.
Mhm.
Like we were in AM for a long time,
Yes.
and then we kind of moved to FM, and we can still kind of bridge back to AM, and we can still kind of hang, but then we keep deciding and choosing more for
Yeah.
ourselves. And
Yeah.
it gets harder to bridge the gap, to
Yeah.
hang out. Like
Yes. Yes.
I
It's
don't
so true.
talk about
So
chaos
true.
and trauma. I don't want to be in that. I don't want to expose my field to anything that's not moving and supporting me energetically in my
Yeah.
dreams and my life. And
Yeah.
I lost so many people through this process.
Yeah.
And it was
Yeah. You
there was a lot of mourning, even though you know it's the right thing, it's the thing. There's still grief when you lose people you care about.
absolutely. Absolutely. But you also appreciate, if you get to that space where that cut is not because of any, I mean, that we have had moments in our life, right? And our clients have that they just have to, cut those relationships because of toxicity. But this was an interesting twist. I loved what it offered me. I appreciated what it gave me, the ability to play with myself and my skill set and what I truly believe is my gift. And I simply said, I have to grow forward. I have to bet on myself, is what I said. I have to find the grace to fall forward and fail and know that this is all part of the journey. And in order to discover more of this person, I'm excited now that I'm looking square in the eyes and I'm going like, I gotta chase you down even more and get to know you.
Well, I love your
It was exciting.
discernment. I love your discernment. I love your honoring of your own knowing. And I think there are a lot of people who are still a prisoner of that. What will people think?
Mm,
I need to do this, or someone's going to be upset, or someone's going to judge me, or there's going
mhm,
to be a consequence. But I think there's a place and time when you start to realize that anything what I came to is anything not supporting me and my journey and my vision and my truth. Anytime I stepped out of that alignment was like a betrayal of my soul, because my soul embodies everything that I value,
mhm,
everything that I am, everything
mhm,
I'm meant to do in this lifetime, my service,
mhm.
my heart, my integrity. And every time I stepped out to maybe fall back, in the beginning, you kind of are falling back and going forward and falling back.
Right.
It was truly a betrayal of my soul to
Mm,
myself. And I got to a place where I no longer can do it ever.
mm,
I will not,
yeah.
because I'm only as good as my own integrity, my own heart, and my own alignment in
Yeah.
service to others. I
Yeah.
cannot be teaching or empowering someone in a way and not embodying it myself.
That makes sense. You want to be a message. You don't want to just be a messenger.
Right.
And that makes perfect sense because to not have walked the talk or at least have witnessed, then, it's a light and a light shows the way and
Mhm.
goes the way. And obviously, we could put that light in other people's hands and offer them these strength finding conversations and creating a space where they can funnel and channel attention to the thoughts and hearts and actions of their life to quantify, if not deeply understand where it might be coming from. I think one of the strongest, I won't say strongest, but one session I had with a client through a corporate company that allowed me the opportunity to do what I call tri-C. I could tap into counseling with some vendors that could come into the organization if need be to work with their employees, but also training and then or coaching and consulting. And so this individual came to me for the work side of the house. They were a 1099 employee and they wanted to really leverage their professional success in the business by expanding their marketing services in order to promote their services. And so, long story short, we got into a place where there was some deep childhood trauma experienced at the hands of a mother. And it was being displayed in this young lady through her physical attributes. In other words, she had symptoms and signs of MS. And she was trying to go through all of these tests to pinpoint MS, right? To find a diagnosis for why her body was warring against her and fighting against her. And in our session, I kid you not, we had got to a place where we were talking about this childhood trauma because as a coach, we don't really work in this space of counseling or therapy, but we can go there to assess and understand in order to bring it forward to see if it's movable and a way to use it to grow from or grow through. And we hit a spot that really spoke volumes to her and caused her to fall to her knees. And it was around that trauma she had with her mom and what that meant to her. But ultimately, it was the rejection. It was the mother choosing, men over her, the mother, the belief and the experience of physical, mental trauma, and outright just abusive blame and the words and the name calling and the misuse and withholding food, withholding,
Incredible
basic
what
needs
people
to
can
this young
endure.
person. Yes, and she was just a little girl, but
Yeah.
to see her come face to face with that trauma and be asked this question, I've summed this up to say this is, when we offer someone in that moment the opportunity to heal and
Yes.
to grow through that.
Powerful.
I watched her body begin to just shake uncontrollably because what was happening is that she was holding this blame and this victim.
She was
And
releasing it, right?
She was releasing it. And what was
Energetically.
happening, and what was happening, you could see now this empathy, sadness come over her for her mom. And she said, "What are you doing to me? What are you doing to me?" Because now she started to reconcile and release what she blamed and held hostage of someone that was
She carried
at
it all
blame.
in her field,
She did.
and then it manifested physically in her
Yeah,
body.
in her body.
Mhm.
And she was able to process the true root causes of that trauma and how she was holding hostage and blame and anger and resentment
So
of
much.
her mother. And then when she realized, her mother didn't have what she was entitled to receive as a mother. And how could she even give to her what her herself didn't have to give? And who's to blame for your mother's trauma and so forth and so forth and
Goes so
so
far
forth.
back.
Ooh, it went so far
Right?
back, Wendy, that it
Breaking a
started to
program. That's so
break down the
powerful.
program. Yes. And it allowed her to say, "I feel sad for you." And that's when she started to heal herself and take back her own power. And then to work from that space where she says, "I feel so much lighter. I feel so much more um, a desire to heal the relationship, a desire to, understand so that she could be understood." And at that moment, Wendy, you're like a brand new baby horse. You're ready to go out to the world
I
and say, "I
mean,
love you."
what a gift to be able to facilitate that, but also bear witness to this
Mm-hmm.
transformation
Mm-hmm.
um, in person, and
Yes.
to then guide her forward from a more healed and
Yeah.
whole place, within herself.
Yeah.
And what happens is this emotional repression it's energetic and it manifests in
Mm-hmm.
your body. We're mind, body, and soul, we are connected. And people don't understand the power of the energies and toxicities that we hold and don't allow to process out, the
Right.
physical impacts it has on us.
Right.
Because that energy has to go somewhere.
You got to go somewhere. It's going to
You're
eat
holding
you
it, so it's
or
got to
eat
go
everybody
somewhere.
else. Yeah, because she was very kind to the world and she was holding it all in for herself. and it was eating away at her. And then to
Oh,
have
what a gift.
this transformation that she had that was unfolding, um, there's a lot of silence to allow that person to unpack, and then to how do we go forward. And so, we worked with this newness of energetic desire to extend and support, but also the loving word of loving boundaries so
Yeah.
that she could be able to safeguard um, what had happened to her without having to experience someone else's trauma.
Compromise
Because,
her,
yeah,
her integrity and
her
self.
integrity, and then the experience, and didn't want to just open up the bag of love and only to be hurt
Boundaries
again.
are an important part of self-love
Hmm.
and
Yep,
preservation.
she experienced the change, but her mom may not have, not yet,
Right. Right.
and so it was important. And so it was wonderful to see her move on, have children, because she couldn't even have any kids because of the way that her
Right. She
body
was
was
afraid
rejecting
that
it.
she would repeat the cycle or they would be
Well,
dead.
her body was rejecting them.
Oh.
Her body was rejecting them because of the trauma.
Mm.
And I believe, now that you say that, there could very well be that deep-seated, worry, wonder, um, of how to be an effective mother. But she couldn't understand why she wasn't having kids. Her
There's
body
so many
just wasn't having
layers,
them.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So many layers to this process of healing, and
Mm-hmm.
it truly is healing
Mm-hmm.
because everything does come back to our inner being,
Isn't that the
our
truth?
core beliefs about ourselves, how we can, how we relate to it. I think oftentimes if we can relate to it in a different way, I think there's a huge transition that happens when you go from victim to empowered.
I believe so. And then one that you get to own,
Mhm.
and one you get to know the pathway forward for whatever life's journey blindside takes you. It truly is the tool, or the repeatable strategies for healing, whether it's strength finding conversations, holding space for yourself, being able to interpret the noise, and providing yourself wonderful people around you that could very well support that journey, because life is fast. And I know that, in retrospect and in hindsight, life has given me other opportunities, right, to experience holding space for transformation. However, hope you didn't hear that. But however, I think it's important to know that, life can throw you all kinds of blind sides, but the skill set's still the same,
Right.
and life can move so fast. And I think people, in hindsight, people are moving so fast that they don't take the time to heal. That makes sense. They don't know. They think busyness of it all can um, ignore, if not bypass those moments, and then another
Exactly.
blow, and then another blow, and then another
I would
blow, and then
call
you're
that like
changed.
spiritual bypassing our deeper inner work.
Yes, yes,
And that really keeps you stuck in a loop and pattern where you just repeat, wash, rinse, repeat. And you can't,
yes.
it's interesting to watch people who are not consciously aware because they can't figure out why they keep dating or marrying that same person, or because until the lesson is learned, you're going to repeat the experience. It's going to keep coming at you. And even I think for us, we're in the field of supporting transformation, but we still have human lives and we still experience things. And I wanted to touch on this experience you had recently
Mm,
this year, which is probably going to have to be another podcast, but we can touch on it. So share just a little bit about what happened this year for you.
yeah,
So much.
yeah. Well, it's actually 2020. So
Oh,
it's
it's
been a, yeah,
2020.
2020. It's been a journey. So it's a healing journey, another one, right? So it always seems to lead back to my parents, right? And so 2020, March 17th of 2020, when the world was shutting down, um, I found out through 23andMe that my father was not my father. So prior to that, 3 years prior, I had a young lady reach out to me because she had found that we were first, second cousins on 23andMe, and we wanted to figure out why and how. Now, mind you, I only took the test because I've got blue-eyed grandbabies, and I wanted to find out why I got blue-eyed grandbabies.
Well, really?
Yeah, right. I
Oh
do.
my
I got full-on
gosh.
grandbaby. So I wanted to find out
Wow.
what and what, so I did the test because I wanted to know more about our history. And get a hit 3 years prior, saying, I don't want to know why we're first, second cousins. And that's kind of a close-in relationship. And I don't know you. And I said, I don't know you. So
Mm-hmm.
it took us 3 years to try to figure out, something. And so she had gotten her mother and father to take the test so I can find out if I'm coming from her mom or her dad's side. And mind you, my dad here that lives in around the corner from me, he had taken the test, but a different test years for me prior, because I wanted to find out his African roots. So he
Right.
never took 23andMe with
Right.
me, but my mom had never taken the test. And I thought, surely if I get my mom to take the test, it will reveal maybe if she's coming from her, mother's side or father's side, then we can kind of pinpoint and go from there. Now, long story short, um, my mother confesses, she was like, oh my God, I'm wondering, what's going on, because I know that my father, my grandfather, had mentioned to her that he wasn't sure if he was her daughter. And in saying that, this young lady who is trying to figure out how we're related calls me up and says, hey, I talked to my grandmother and she says you look like the candidates. And I said, I've never heard that name. Let me ask my dad. Never heard that name. I
Hmm.
said, let me ask my mom. Mom, have you ever heard of the candidates? She said, I went to school with the candidates. And I said, you did? She was like, yeah. And they lived in the house right behind ours on the next street. And I said, Mom, do you think, do you think your mother messed around with that man's? You do you think that your mother messed around with that boy that you grew up with, went to school with, his father? And she was like, oh my gosh, I hope not, because that was the rumor that my grandmother was promiscuous, and we weren't always sure which children of hers is my grandfather's, but this
Right.
could be possible. So I said, Mom, um, we'll at least find out if you're coming in as a blood relative of her side or no side,
Right.
because if
Right.
you are, then we've got a little bit more to keep
Right.
digging. But what if this is your half brother? And she's like, oh my God. So out of the blue, in our waiting for the test, this man reaches out to my mom on Facebook and says, I think we're family. And she freaks out because she thinks the lady who reached out to me 3 years prior told somebody in the family that we're trying to find out if she could be related in some way or another, to that side of the family. And
Right.
so she freaked out. And I said, Mom, you don't have to talk to him. I'll talk to him, because the only way we're going to find out if this man is your half brother is if he takes the test. This will solve a lot for us. He's fallen into our lap.
Right.
And I said, letting me talk to him. Wendy, I get on the phone. Hi, Mr. Kennedy. How are you? He says, I was talking to my grandmother, and she mentioned that she believes we are related to Jesse Owens, the Olympic track star who ran against Berlin and won a gold medal. And that is such a, legacy in my family, because I used to be a track star at Ohio State, and my mother remembers polishing his trophies. And I saw your Facebook post, and it said, celebrating the legacy of Jesse Owens for the movie Race. If you haven't seen Race, go see Race. And I trailed you back to your mother, Jewel, and I went to school with her. So I'm wondering if we're related. And I said, well, Mr. Candidate, if you want to know if you're related to us, then I would recommend you take the 23andMe test. We took the test. And 3 months later, my mother calls panicking, because she's trying to figure out why he's asking her, why does the 23andMe say that Kalena is my daughter?
Oh my gosh. Whoa. And that blew a whole can of worms open, I imagine. Oh my gosh.
Oh,
Did you
I,
freak out? How did you feel when you got that
girl,
news?
when she called me and said, he said, and I don't know. And you have the results. I have my mom's results. And so I was just in there 2 days prior, and I had just happened to see where this young lady's name populated on my tree. And I was like, oh, you're coming in from my dad's side of the family, like the lineage. I'm going to have to get my dad to take the test because that's where you're coming in from, the Hullums. And I didn't see any names or faces populated in my mother and father's, tree, or where they sit in the family tree. So I was just there 3 days ago, just text her, kind of figuring it out. Asked her to check and see if she knew some Hullums. She said she'd check. So then 3 days later, I'm like, I was just in there. You guys don't know how this works. Let me log in and see what's going on. As soon as I log in, Wendy, here populates now my mother and my father, and both he and her sat in the parent seat of the family
Oh
tree.
my gosh. What happened? Did you have a heart attack? I would have had a heart attack.
I had a heart attack and I screamed to the top of my lungs because I was like, and my husband's walking around with his hand over his mouth and he's pacing the floor, and the eyes are wide open, going in and out of the room. And I'm screaming, and my mom's on the phone saying, is it true? Is it true? What do you see? Because she can't see the results.
Right.
And I'm screaming, screaming like I can't tell. Only shock and awe, blindside, fear, upset, realities,
All at once.
all at once. And she's like, what is it true? Is it true? And I said, is this, and stop and pause. As a girl growing up in this toxic home, being raised by my mom and my stepfather, I've always wanted to know who my dad was. I recall asking my mom at 12, 13, 14 years old, who is my father? I want to know who my daddy is. I don't have my daddy in my life. And she said his name, William Ware. And I, for 3 years, held on to a William Ware. When I was old enough to look in the white pages, old enough to try to ask around town, asked her to take me to the old neighborhood so I could knock on doors to find my daddy. And this is before cell phone. We only had the phone on the wall with the white pages on the book, right? The phone book. That's all we had. Yeah. So I'm knocking up and down doors trying to say, do you know a William Ware? And she's sitting in the car and I'm knocking on doors.
Oh my goodness. You had to pull to find this man for a long time.
Yes. And I'm looking for this man. And then I turned 17 years old and I pray, God, I just want to know who my father is. I just want to know who my father is. I feel different. I am somebody, right? Coming forward, I am somebody. Then who is the other half of me? And in October of 1988 is when this beautiful man walks through the door. And my mother confesses that truth, that I'm so sorry, William Ware is not your dad, but Larry Hullum is your father. Hence, there's some reasons why she felt like not telling me. Her cousin, or her best friend, her very best friend from childhood, is still her best friend to this day. It's also that my father, my believed father's sister. And she kept telling my mother for years, are you sure this isn't his child? She acts like us, she looks like us, and I guess in hindsight now, looking back at what my mom was working with, she probably just said, you're probably right, it's his child. And she made that truth, that confession, and said, this is your father. And
so you fostered a relationship with him, thinking
girl, he was father? He comes over just to see me because
he lives around the corner from you.
Girl, he around the corner from me. Now, mind you, we lived in Ohio at this time as a teenager. He lived here. Okay. And he's coming to me as a little girl because my aunt, or my mother's best friend, said, you need to get over there and see that girl. I think that's your child. And really? So
all this time since then, you had fostered a father-daughter relationship.
Girl, I'm 53 years old now. Oh, so the man,
how does he take this news when
girl, the man is my father, and he took me in at 18,
Oh,
and he gave me away at my wedding.
I mean,
He
he
has
is your
been the
father.
grand. He
He is
is the
your father
father.
in spirit,
Yes, yes. He's raised my grandkids.
Oh
He's,
my
I mean,
gosh.
his grandkids. He's the great grandpa. He is Papaw.
Oh
And he has lived here in this town, and I've lived in this town with him, with my family. And he lives right across the street on the next
my
street, and I
goodness.
get to see his house.
This
And
must have
to
really sent shockwaves through everyone's,
everything,
like
because
it
not,
triggered probably so much
yeah,
emotionally for everyone in different ways, right?
yeah. 18 years old, you've built this relationship with the grandparents that you thought were your grandparents, your aunts, your uncles, your cousins, your
Right.
siblings, all
All
these
of it.
people, and to only be blindsided by um, this new awareness, this new truth. And you can only imagine in my scream, it brought up that childhood. I can't land here. I can't have ownership here. I can't have truth here. I can't close this
A
door
lack of
here.
safety almost.
Yes. But also a lot of just going back to the days that I was knocking on doors trying to get the
Mhm.
answer, and then to only still not have the answer.
Mhm.
It was just a crippling effect of unanswered um, truth, being bamboozled, feeling like my
Afraid
life
in some
was
way
out
or
of
something.
control.
I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, cut some layers of my identity, things that I've
This is just
adopted,
stripping you to the core.
bring me to the
Girl.
core. I mean,
Oh,
shut me down in the midst of the pandemic.
wow.
And
Whew.
here we are with this new truth. And the hardest thing was my mom not understanding how she got pregnant by this gentleman, and swears up and down that there was no physical interaction, and this man cannot be my father. If you haven't heard Kirk Franklin's story about this blind side about his father and mother, uh, it kind of walks parallel. He was just sharing his story about thinking and believing this man that he buried was his father, to only find out that his mother had a relation with a man that DNA proved was his father. And she swears that this is not your father. It
Well,
cannot
I
be your
think it's
father.
hard to, I mean, imagine how shocked your mom was. You're
Oh
shocked.
my gosh.
Imagine your mom, like, OMG.
And she's trying to replay her life and
Right.
try to come forward with an answer,
Oh
but
my
everything coming
gosh.
out of her mouth was creating more um, anger, more uncertainty, more
Mm.
rejection, more like dishonesty. Like, if you're saying to your child, I don't know how this is possible, I promise you, and what's
But
God
you're
and
looking at the
country,
hard evidence of it too.
I'm saying at some point in time, was your pants down and his thing and his little thing out. That's not the word I use, but with your pants down
Something
because
happened there. You're
something
not aware of
happened.
it.
And she's like, I don't recall, I don't remember. That is not something I can recall. I tell you, I promise you, nothing ever happened. Nothing ever happened. Nothing ever
Did you
happened.
ever
We
talk
never
to
did
this
anything.
man then? Did you then call,
Well,
get a
yes,
story, his version of what happened?
I encouraged him to take the test. Now it's time for me to, say hello again. And so a couple days went by, and I called with my husband, put him on speakerphone, and I said, well, Mr. Kennedy, we got a lot to unpack. And he was so gracious and so loving and so tender and
Oh,
so supportive. And
oh,
he paced with me even in his joy, because he hadn't done nothing wrong. He did not know. So he's
right.
excited to see this girl with all this glitz and glamour and lights around her
Oh my,
doing something amazing. And it's his child. And so I said, can you tell me what happened? Do you recall where it might have occurred? And he said, I do. He said, there was a time, he said, I was 15. He said, I got to a house party and a bunch of kids hanging out and they was doing stuff. I got thrown in a room. He said there was some heavy petting. He said, I probably wasn't in there probably about 30 seconds. He
oh
said,
my
because I
God.
realized I was someplace I shouldn't be and I needed
He
to get
was
out of there
out of his
fast
league,
as I can. He said, I wasn't supposed to be around here.
but something
So,
happened because here you
so
are.
he said, Kalena, he said, I promise you. He said, what
Oh,
we did, you would have never thought anything happened, would ever happen. He says, I didn't even come. He said, I barely touched your
it's
mother.
like
He
a
said, I was in
miracle.
and out. he said, we just was heavy petting. And I didn't even come. I didn't. He said, what you thought we did? He said, you wouldn't have thought nothing of it. He said, I was in there, realized I need to get out because this isn't my girlfriend. We all know we're doing what's going on
All this stuff.
all of a sudden.
Now
And
tell me,
so, yeah.
did you get an opportunity to meet him in person?
Oh, yeah. Oh,
What was
yeah.
that like?
Girl, interesting. Because mind you, I had the father I've always wanted.
Yes.
And now I'm presented with someone I have to get to know. Like,
Yeah.
do I have the juice and the energy to
Go there.
go there? Do I want to? Could I? Should I? And so I allowed myself to be cordial, friendly, gracious, because, these people were excited to embrace me. They did not know I existed.
Yes.
Yes. And so I recognized that they did nothing wrong.
Right.
And in not doing wrong, they were gracious enough to pace with me. It's been 3 years. And so hindsight, I paced it according to my ability to be organic and authentic and genuine. There were times when I just needed a minute and to strengthen up the courage. I won't even say courage or I don't even know what word it is. It's not even courage. It's more of the depression of it to reach
There's a
out and
lot
say
of emotion
hello.
to process in this whole story, right?
Disappointment of it and the disappointment of it all to reach out and say hello at times. And so I have a grandmother who's still alive at 98 years old. She's
To
sharp
meet
as a
her.
wit. Yes, girl, she's been, a very important person in our life. The children have met her.
My
I
gosh.
see her and talk to her and
This
trying
is
to
like
catch up
a
for time.
bonus family that just
Mhm.
emerged on your doorstep.
I
That's really
know,
incredible.
I know, I know. Still trying to figure out how to blend, those
Mm.
current relationships with my father here and the relationships that I have there.
I
I
just
don't get
feel
to
like the
decide
bonds
that.
of love can't be broken. You
No,
cannot break the bonds of love and connection with the man that raised you because
no,
he did
never.
it with such beautiful love. And
Willingness to do without a test. He
yeah,
accepted
I
it.
mean,
He
this
took
is
me
really
in.
something. And
Yeah.
how's it impacted you? Like how have you changed going through
Yep.
this experience?
That's a great question because every day is a new awareness 3 years ago. And I realize I talk about it a lot. So there obviously is still I'm still processing. I
Mhm.
smile about it now instead of crying about it. So
Oh.
there is a process there. There are emotions there. I get to experience it. But I do believe I'm in a space where I've changed. I have literally changed.
Mhm.
And part of your change is it sad? Is it adulting? And you have to understand, I'm still figuring out the words for that.
Right.
So part of my emotion is I have had a blind side and it has given me more than my life, than some lives have experienced.
Mhm.
And I get to draw from so many beautiful colors in order to be a bigger me, because that was one of the deepest revelations that through the bloodline, I truly believe that that had an element of gifting, an element of, capabilities through the bloodline. But I realized that the people I've connected with, disconnected with, has given me a bigger palette to draw from to be a bigger version of myself. And so that freed me from feeling limited. And so on one hand, realizing that the very man that what I called my father is not my father, but has given me this beautiful color of gifts that didn't come from the bloodline, just said, well, where else am I drawing, inspiration, power from, connection from? And I'm like, so you mean to tell me that I can go beyond my bloodline? I don't have to be limited by just what is in my genealogy.
That's a huge revelation.
It's huge for me because,
Your beliefs are expanding, your conscious
yeah,
awareness around what's possible and what's
yeah,
appropriate and what's nurturing and
yeah,
supportive
yeah. And I
is
think
changing.
And I believe the other side of that emotion is the wished I, and this is unfolding, wish I could have controlled that, right? I wish I could have been in charge of that.
Mm.
Does that make sense? I
It
wish I could have
does,
been
but
in charge of that. Like, I wish I saw it coming.
I feel like there's just a cosmic order to everything, and you can't control
Absolutely.
these things. They happen right on time. They
Yeah.
happen right when you are capable of handling everything that gets flushed up. I think if it had happened any earlier, you
Yeah.
wouldn't have had the tools and the resilience and the
Yeah.
compassion levels and love levels for yourself and others to navigate it in such a beautiful way, right?
Correct. Yes, yes, because those tools had to come forward again
Yeah.
for self. And so this is when I said, it's okay to take a step back. It's okay to not be okay, but how long are you willing to stay there? And if your desire to move forward you're unable to, in other words, if it's choosing you and you're not choosing it, if it's got a hold on you, then here's an opportunity to align yourself with resources that could support the tools that you know, but also give you perspective and give you an opportunity to hear um, real truth, in this moment. And so I decided to reach out to Dr. Kimberly Morris, who is a really great friend of mine, who's a psychiatrist or therapist. And she had a nice 11 p.m. conversation at IHOP.
Wow, she was so available. How perfect is that?
She
How
was. I saw her at
perfect.
7 o'clock and I
Oh
was
my
like, I need to
goodness.
talk. And so we
I
went to
think that
IHOP
must
at
have been
8:30.
probably the first of many conversations.
It was. And
Friend.
she said something that freed me. And I offer that to your listeners. I hope and pray for people. I optimistically believe that people will work things out, which is a beautiful gift to have.
Mhm.
However, in that moment, I wasn't recognizing who was in front of me today. And I was reluctant to see a mother that I believed in that narrative was irresponsible, um, childish, stupid, just, you know, what the freak, like judging her of all of her bad days.
Mhm.
And I was unwilling to confess without having to, and I was trying to bypass it by, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay.
But it was not okay
It was
inside.
not okay inside. And so when my colleague, in, encouraged me to embrace that narrative so that I could move forward, I was afraid to because I thought I'd get left there. I thought that if I truly confessed my deepest thoughts, emotions, I would stay there and I wouldn't be able to find my way forward to look at my mom in a loving way.
In a
I thought if
different,
I allowed that lens to come and own it,
right.
then how could I filter out of it? And so it kept weighing on me. But after a period of time, I was able to really engage my mom in conversations, short burst conversations, when I could muster the energy to talk through things. And it was more of a, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. But that I'm sorry over again. And Kalena, I didn't mean that was like being the victim, and both of us couldn't be victims at the same time. So I couldn't save you and save me. So, I needed to always hang up because I just really felt like I can't save you and save me and not get more angry and more depressed trying to
Right.
hear your sad
You
story.
are very
So
self-aware of your boundaries, which I think is
I was,
very, very important in
I
this
was,
situation.
I was,
But
I
I
was.
feel when you are able to honor those boundaries
Yep,
and honor where you are and gradually open the door,
yep.
compassion comes in.
It does, and it did. It
Mm.
really did because I gave myself grace to be okay with um, allowing myself to sit in those emotions and reflected on the young lady, reflected on previous clients that, I've done this when I graduated from coach training, I allowed myself to go to a place of deep awareness and healing. And I remember calling her this one particular afternoon and I was sitting on the side of my bed in the dark and she started to go down that narrative. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. I don't know why, and I started to feel all of those emotions, Wendy, come up. My voice started to tremble.
Mm.
And I recall getting to a place of flutter, and I didn't know what words would come out of my mouth next. And so I simply just said, I need to hang up. I got to go. And I hung up and I sat on the side of the bed and I began to allow myself this rant. And I said, why are you mad? And I spoke out loud saying, because she's irresponsible, immature, and she was just stupid for allowing. I'm like, what? Who does that? And then I said, but why do you care? Because, and I said, because I just feel like, I have to be at fault and blame and take and suffer the sins of the parent. So why does that make you mad? And I'm asking myself these
Right,
questions. And
right.
it's because I don't deserve to have to live, out their sins. I did nothing wrong. Why do you care? Because it was just immature and stupid and irresponsible. Then why do you care? And that's when it hit. I said, because my mom, in the midst of all of that anger and all of that abuse and all of those trying times, there was one thing that she did for me. She would sing this song, Somewhere Over the Rainbow, Way Up High. There's a land that I heard of once in a lullaby. And I remember saying, it's because she's not winning.
Mm.
And I remember consciousness came. Why do you think she's not winning? And that's when I started to replay this 6-year-old narrative of her singing this song that was deeply embedded in my psyche around optimism, what life offers us, how we get to play full out, what's calling us forward, why we're somebody special. Because I am somebody, because
Right.
I
The
recall this
seed was planted
song
by that song,
that
right?
song that my mom gave me.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the only song she would ever sing. And I then realized, because she's not winning, because everything that I get a chance to do for other people, and she's gonna miss it, and she's not gonna have it.
Wow.
Then the tears
This
started
got
coming.
unpacked into something massive from this place seed of anger. Wow.
That
That's
really looked like love.
these revelations. Wow.
That looked like love and deep desire for her to win. Life is
Mm.
offering you something and you're not getting it. And then here comes what I believe is my God conscious, the Holy Spirit. Why do you believe that she's not winning? And here's that ethics, my ethics about coaching. Don't shoot on people. Don't, don't do that to people, right? People have their own pathway where
Right.
they're the unique self of what they had to experience. Why do
Yeah.
you think she's not happy with what she's had to deal with and how her life is unfolded, what she didn't have available to her? Why do you believe that she's not happy? Then I started to feel convicted because I don't think I ever really truly asked her if she was happy. I just listened to her, saw her life, and thought she could have it better.
You
Or
came to
I,
your own conclusion about how it should look or how she
yes,
should have experienced it, but really she experienced it exactly as she chose it.
and absolutely felt very blessed because of what she had.
Right.
So then here I am sitting on the side of the bed, starting to let light in, love in, empathy in, forgiveness in. I'm sorry now. I'm sorry. Please forgive me, invisible force, because now I am apologizing consciously to my mother, asking her to forgive me for
You
this.
literally flipped the whole, just flipped the whole thing. And
Wendy,
what's incredible, Kalena, is you had the guidance, inner guidance, to take you deeper and deeper. And you sat with it and you went deeper within yourself. And I want to honor you for staying there, for holding the space for yourself, for listening to that guiding voice that was pulling you to the full awareness
thank you for
of
that.
the truth. And this is a key piece because most people stop at the rage and disappointment.
Right. And
They
I was
stop
afraid of that. And
and
I was afraid.
they stay there. And it takes consciousness to keep asking the question, to go deeper and deeper and get deeper into the deepest layers of truth and allow yourself to be there and look what came of it. Like it probably reframed your whole relationship with your mom because your perspective of it changed.
Correct. And then my desire to champion her way, right? Her voice,
Mhm,
her deepest desires for what I believe as a family, her children have denied her the opportunity to experience. And
mhm,
that was freedom her
mhm,
way, certainty,
mhm.
connection her way. We felt as if we watched you sacrifice lovingly, we watched you work hard. We watched a woman who didn't have a high school graduation excel to the beauty industry to become something beautiful, you know, that required a degree. And we were like, oh my God, our mom has graduated and she's going to have a cool job. And we watched her fight for what she has. And we thought lovingly, we will take care of her. We will do it for her. We will make sure she's good. We
But
will
on
take
her
care of
terms.
mama.
It's got to be
Well,
on.
at the beginning, it was on our terms, right?
She probably
Because
didn't
we,
like that.
in
She
the
probably
beginning, this was our lens
didn't.
that we would take care of mom on our terms. We would
Yeah,
give her comfort. We would give her, you
right.
know, certainty. We would give her connection.
Mm.
And we did that for years. And years she kept saying, I can't, I should, I want to. And we were like, Mom, you can't live on your own, Mom. You know, you don't make enough money, Mom, you know, affording that and living here would
What
be too
pivoted?
risk.
What shifted in that narrative that allowed her to have this on her own terms?
Yep, it was that moment sitting on that bed and
Mm.
having that introspective dialogue, and then now feeling guilty that I have should it all over her, SHOULDED, should it all over, that I was like, I, she has every right to live connected to her power, her purpose, her plan. She has every right to explore her God-given rights to be able to live life the way that she feels in control of and wants. And so this was that moment when we were already in this blind side. Prior to the blind side, my mom was going to be moving back from California to Indiana, and it was already decided that she'd be moving with me. And so I had to turn around and meet with my brothers and go, hey, I think we need to allow mom the opportunity to experience life on her terms
How
with
did they
giving her
feel about
access.
that? Like,
Well, it was like, what do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean? She can't live on her own. That would be risky. Like, there's no way she'd have enough money. Then she, obviously, the fear was if she doesn't have enough resources, then it pours out of our resources. And then it gives us worry that there's an uncertainty and unknown. And then what if we can't take care of those needs? What if she's physically hurt and we can't get to her? There was a lot of real love
a
concerns
lot of
around
fear.
her, a
No.
lot of fear. And there was a lot of, I don't, what are we saying? And I said, listen, I truly believe that mom and what she has available to her, she can work with it, but it's going to be with a sacrifice and it's going to be with a risk. However, what's the possibility of us coming together to pay for, to contribute to a peace of mind? In other words, she's not broken. She is creative, resourceful, and whole. She's been doing this for years. She's been able to do this with a high school education. She was able to raise 4 kids, and none of us have been in jail or have any criminal background. She has been able to put food on our table. She's been able to clothe herself. She's been able to
Right. She's
find, she's
resilient.
resourced, she's
She's got
resilient, she's
this.
resourceful. How about we just come together to support a peace of mind? And they were like, well, what do you have in mind? And I said, what if I were able to find apartments that were in a radius of my home that had a great rating, great amenities, great access, peace of mind that she could afford, that we could also contribute to ensure her affordability so that she can be able to do this on her own. What say ye? And they were like, well, how much? And I was like, we really only need to contribute $150 each a month.
It's
from
nothing.
all four of us. It's
That's
nothing. Just
nothing.
but that's the peace of mind. It
Right,
wasn't the need to fix the problem. It
right,
was the
right,
peace of mind.
right.
So to give that as a current towards my mother to say, this allows you to be able to have the extra to support the unknown so that you can be able to do it
It's
your
a
way.
win all the way around. I love that you thought
Absolutely.
outside of the box and you couldn't have
Yep.
gotten here without going through that moment in the dark.
Yes, in the dark, and it was her gifting for me to do it at the same time. It was a gift and liberating for her to do it at the same time. So long story short, she did move back from California to Indiana, and she is living on her own, and
That's
she is
amazing.
living yes, and she's able to find her own access to, benefits and things that just make her finances stretch further. She's able to find transportation that is catered to her specifically, that comes straight to her door and picks her up. She doesn't even need her own personal
That's
vehicle.
amazing.
I know, and I
Amazing.
have to pay for it. And she's able to have fun and enjoyment with people around her.
I
And
mean, I
now
think
she,
it's important too for people who are getting elderly to have community.
I think so
You
too.
get
And
really cut off when you're just living with
yourself, and that is the journey.
yourself
And
or even
yeah,
with a child of yours because you don't have this independence and this community on your own. So
that's correct. And that's her journey in this moment is this is
yeah,
the very first time that she in her adult life, moving out of the home from being married, living with her parents to living on her own. This is her very first time experiencing a life of independence.
I
And yeah, I love it too, but it also comes with her awareness on how to maintain strength and agility and being able to be proactive and active and
well,
be community. So this is hers. This
also
is
has
hers.
you as a daughter, so I'm pretty sure that resource is tapped sometimes and
Sometimes,
sometimes, but
sometimes she's
you're a
not
good
broken. She doesn't need to be
if she
fixed.
needs you.
Sometimes, yeah,
Well,
sometimes she doesn't
Kalena,
need to be fixed.
this has been such a beautiful conversation. I thank you for
You're
your
welcome.
wisdom, your
And thank
story,
you.
your time. Do you want to share any piece of wisdom before we say goodbye to the listeners? I mean, this
Oh,
whole time was basically a wisdom bomb, but let's wrap it up if you've got something specific that's helped you on your journey.
thank you for that. And so grateful for the opportunity. Time flew by, and I don't even know how long we had been on
Went
this
so
call,
fast.
but it goes fast. But listeners, live connected to power, purpose, plan. And what is power? Power is your influence, it is your knowledge, it is your giftings, it is your strong suits, it's your inner resiliency, it's what you have to offer the world, the greatest impact that your life can live and lead and live and leave. And then tap into your purpose. That is truly what gets you up in the morning. It is truly what allows you to keep moving forward. It truly gives you access to what we call legacy, but it also live connected to that amazing plan, because without a plan, everything's an imagination or wish or dream, or it is a life unfulfilled or unexperienced. And so I always tell diamonds, live connected to your power, your purpose, and your plan, so that you can leave a legacy or the impact to the world that we get the opportunity to experience, and that is this life. And be a message, not a messenger. Do the work, be the
Mm,
resilience,
I love
be
that.
yes. And thank you so much, Wendy.
Oh,
Appreciate you.
it was a beautiful conversation. And to my audience, thank you so much for joining us. I know there were just a million nuggets and jewels of helpful information in our conversation. Remember that we're a community and I'd love to interact with you. You can leave a voice message that I can use in future episodes. Tell us what you learned. Tell us what you enjoyed about this conversation. And I'll leave the link in the comments. Have a beautiful day. Love yourselves. And I'll see you next time. Bye.